Hey y'all, I'm Rylan. Welcome to my channel. We have a lot to talk about today because in the month of September, I somehow managed to read 29 books. This is the most I have read in a month since before 2025 even started, and I don't know how that happened, but it did, and we're gonna chat about all 29 books. Some are great, some are not so great, but I did find 2 new favorites for 2025 and just had a very fun time with the variety of things that I picked up. I think 17 of these books were sports romances that I read for the sports romance readathon that Ellie over at EVMB Creatives on Instagram hosted for the month of September. Mixed in with that sports romance, I read some thrillers, other contemporary romance, and just a bunch of stuff. I think most of my list right here is romance, but we've got a lot of tropes involved and some thrillers in the mix as well. To give y'all some quick stats before we dive into this very rapid, hopefully wrap up, because there are so many books to talk about. In the month of September, I read 29 books, which totaled out to 8,625 pages with an average star rating of 3.4. 14 of the books that I read were physical, 12 of them were on ebook, and 3 of them were audio, but I also had 8 physical or ebooks that also had an audiobook accompaniment, so I did have some multi-formatted reads during the month, which I always enjoy. I love a good audiobook and will always take advantage of having access to what I can find on my library or on Spotify. Let's go ahead and jump into the 29 books that I read though, because I've got a lot to share, and we're gonna go in order of how I wrote them down, which is pretty much chronological order, and we're gonna go very quickly through these 29 books. I started the month with Red Zone by Riley Page. This is a sports romance between a football player and the coach's daughter, so we have that forbidden element going on. I believe she does social media for the team in this one, and they both have feelings for each other but are trying to not have those feelings. I think specifically the female main character does not want to like the football player, but that does not end up happening, of course. This is their love story. But this one I gave 3 stars. I felt that the writing was very choppy, and while by the end I was rooting for our characters to be together, I had a hard time getting into the storyline because the writing just created this distance in terms of how I was able to connect and visualize the plot and the characters. I did like the OCD rep in this one though, and again, I thought it was cute, but it wasn't a favorite or super memorable romance for me in the end. Second, I read Forget Me Not by Stacey Willingham, which is actually the first book that I've read by her that did not make me cry, which I'm kind of disappointed by, but it is what it is. This one got a 3.5 star rating from me. We follow our main character, Claire, and her older sister disappeared years ago, and the supposed truth of what happened has not ever really sat correctly with Claire, and she gets to go back to her hometown where it all happened and gets to learn more about the truth of what happened to her sister. And we've got cult elements in this one, isolated settings, and it was fun. I just didn't love it as much as some of her other books. I found myself getting bored at times and not necessarily being super interested in the plot, which is a bummer because I typically love a good book about cults and I love Stacey Willingham's books overall, but this one is just not my favorite by her. But I did get to meet her the day after I finished it, and she signed my copy of this one. This is my second time seeing her, and I just think it's fun to collect her books, and she assigned all the ones that I own by her, which I just love. But 3.5 stars to this one. I liked it, did not love it, but of course I will keep reading Stacey Willingham in the future for sure. The next arc that I read was A Method for Magic and Misfortune by Craig Kofi Farmer. This one also got 3.5 stars from me. This is a middle grade fantasy about this young boy who lives in this city that is trying to become a utopia. There is magic in this city somehow, and when our main male character, who is, I think he's 12 or 13, finds out that he also has magic, this very secret magic that is a part of the small town but not everybody really knows about it, he wants to learn how to harness his powers and use them for her the right way, but his professor, his teacher, has some very dark and secret motivations as he's teaching our main male character, and there is lots of drama and violence and fighting and like this good versus evil and what is good and what is evil conversations that happen. We have discussions about family and identity in this one as well, and I liked it. I think my biggest thing with this one was for the plot of it, there was a lot of telling versus showing, and so it was hard to visualize kind of what was going on. There is such an interesting magic system in this one, but some of the descriptions just felt a little bit too descriptive for me and made it hard to kind of picture what was happening in the story. This one was very cute though. I love good middle grade occasionally, and I'm glad that I was able to get an arc of this one from NetGalley. The next two that I read go together, and they are As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson as well as Killjoy by Holly Jackson, which is the prequel novella to this entire series. I gave As Good as Dead and Killjoy 4 stars each. I really enjoy this series overall, although if we're being technical, As Good as Dead is actually my least favorite in the series. I still really enjoyed it, but I feel like Pip is kind of a lot, and I missed that mixed media element that we get so heavily in the first two books of the series, that for this one I felt that was a huge major element of this whole series that we kind of miss out on because it very much diminishes in this one. I also thought the plot was a little bit over the top, and yes, I see that the stakes get higher for Pip as, you know, she continues to grow more popular and she's solving these cases, but it was just a little bit too much for me, and I had to suspend some of my disbelief in portions of it. But overall, I do really like this series and I would recommend it. The novella was just as fun. I am glad that I read it last versus the beginning of the series, but if you do read it first before you read the main trilogy, it does kind of introduce you to the main character, the friend group, and kind of the drama that goes on between them, and it also is the starting point of when Pip picks her senior capstone project. It was fun. It was very quick. I think the audiobook was 3 hours maybe, and I listened to it in a very short amount of time. Next up, we have one of my favorite books of 2025, and that is Game On by Kai Stevens. This is a football cheerleading romance where the football player is actually also a cheerleader for a portion of the book when he steps in to help out our female main character with her cheerleading competition. I cannot remember most of these main characters' names, so I apologize, but this book was wonderful. I believe our female main character in this one, her name is Ella, and she is an exchange student from Oxford, and she is at this university here in Nashville for a school year to compete on their cheerleading team to get more experience, and she ends up falling for the football player at her same school. This one was so fun. You have an ex who is still involved, who is trying to get Ella back, but she's very much focused on the new guy and her cheerleading career, and I really loved this one. The setting was super fun. The characters were wonderful. Their chemistry, I just felt it from the very first or second chapter, and I loved that we got to see both of their perspectives. That's one of my favorite aspects of reading romance. One of my favorite parts of reading romance is getting to see both POVs, and I'm so glad that this one had both. I loved this book so much. A book that I slept on for far too long, and I'm so glad that I finally read, is Happy Place by Emily Henry. Everybody, of course, raves about this author. I have read 2 books by her, but it has been years. I gave Happy Place 4.5 stars. This was such a fun read to kind of wrap up summer with. This takes place between our 2 main characters, Harriet and Wynne. They have been broken up for 5 months but never told their friends. So when they are on vacation, their last vacation in this one spot, they have to pretend to still be engaged because they don't want to ruin this friend group's last trip to this very special place that they have been going to since college. And in the process of fake being together, they rekindle their love, and this one was so sweet. I wish I had tabbed it and annotated it, and I did not, but I'll probably reread it in the future and do that because there were some wonderful quotes in this one. It did feel a little bit long at times, but I still super enjoyed it, loved it a ton, and gave it 4.5 stars. I know why Emily Henry is so hyped up, and I do get the hype, and I do plan to keep reading more from her in the future. Next, we have our book club pick for the month of September for the Mending Hearts book club, and it was probably my least favorite read of the month, if not my least favorite, then one of my least favorites, and that is unfortunately That First Night by Jen McMahon. This is a billionaire nanny romance. He is a single dad. They had a one-night stand 5 years prior to the main plot of the book, and when she applies to be the nanny for his son, they realize that they know each other from that one-night stand, and their love, I guess, rekindles. This book was very much more spice than plot, and I don't love books that have that. I felt like the characters talked over and over and over about how strong their relationship was and how strong their connection was, but the only connection that I feel as though I saw was via that physical connection, but I wanted more emotional connection and more plot that showed these two characters getting to know each other better. The best part about this book was the son, whose name is James, I think, and our female main character, whose name is Peyton, her Gigi. Those are my two favorite parts of this book. Otherwise, I did not love it. I read another NetGalley arc in September called A Match Made in Hell by Charlotte Ingham, I believe. And this one is a young adult or a new adult fantasy that takes place in a hell, but really it's more of like a purgatory. Our female main character wakes up to realize that she is dead, and she is stuck in this underworld city where she is free to roam around. She has her own room, and she has this whole space that she is available to use with stores and shops and restaurants and clubs and game rooms and things like that. But she does not believe that it is her time to be dead. She thinks that she is still meant to be living on Earth, and so she makes a deal with the devil to get her life back, and in the process we fall in love with him. This one was fun. I think that my favorite part about this whole book was the world building. I love the descriptions of this kind of in between like heaven and the real world and like an actual hell where people are punished, because there is that in this one. But I felt like for the stakes that were supposed to be super high, this very intense plot that we get the idea for, there wasn't really a ton of follow through with it. I didn't feel any tension in the plot. I didn't feel any intensity. The action felt very lackluster to me, and I think that with a book of this nature, there could have been room for so much more, and I wanted to see that more, but unfortunately it just was not there. I loved our main character. Her relationship with the main demon in this one was very fun, but I didn't see a ton of super intense moments in the plot, and we needed more of that for a book like this. Next up, we read some sports romances back to back to back to back to back to back to back. I think I have like 8 right here to talk about that I read in a row. Some of them are novellas, and a couple of them are graphic novels, which were so fun. The first one we have is The Ice King by Sailor Rain. This one is about a hockey player and a sports journalist and their very quick enemies to lovers or dislike to love relationship. This one was a novella. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was very cute. Novellas are hard for me to rate, typically more than 4 stars, but I had a great time with this one. It didn't feel super rushed to me. The insta-lust was kind of there, but overall I thought that everything was balanced out very nicely, and the third act conflict made sense to me. Next, we have Love and Hockey by Monty J. I also gave this one 3 stars. This is an age gap hockey romance between 2 hockey players. Our first one being Bishop, and our second main character being Valor. She grew up with a single dad who was a hockey player, so she grew up being taught hockey. She plays hockey, and Bishop is one of the friends of her dad, or like one of the mentees of her dad, who was this huge hockey player. I think Bishop and Valor's dad played on the same team at one point, but he was around a lot when she was a child, and the age gap in this one was a little bit icky to me at times. I love a good age gap sometimes, but this one is cutting it very close to that line of like, This one is just fine to me. I also didn't love the romance or the chemistry between our 2 main characters, but it was fine. 3 stars to this one. I also read Always My Girl. This one was another sports romance novella, and I gave it 4 stars. This one is a second chance hockey romance between our 2 main characters. I've also forgotten what their names are. His name is Madden, I believe, and her name is Viola. So they were high school sweethearts, but they broke up once Madden went to college. I believe that he was a year ahead of Viola, and they get their second chance when they end up at the same college, and Madden never moved on from her and she never moved on from him, and this is their second chance love story. It's a very short, very quick, very sweet book, but I really enjoyed it, so 4 stars. I also read my first tennis sports romance, which was Love Game by Emma Scott. This one I gave 3 stars. This is about our pro tennis player and the woman who is brought onto his team to kind of help heal some of his injuries in a very spiritual way, and they end up falling in love. This one was cute, it was fine. The main character, the main male character, was kind of annoying, but overall, I thought this one was very sweet. I also read Check Please Volume 1 and Check Please Volume 2, and this series as a whole is very, very cute. I gave the first one 3 stars and the second one 4 stars, but in this one we follow a hockey team. Specifically, we follow a new player on this hockey team at the beginning of the series and his love of baking, his love of hockey, and how he ends up molding himself into this team and the feelings that he gets for one of the biggest players for the team, whose name is Zimmerman. I thought that the series was so cute. My only complaint is that some of the scenes just felt so choppy and very like clipped up, and I wanted more, but I thought that this graphic novel series was so fun. I would recommend. It's got hockey, humor, heart, a little bit of romance, and I had a great time with it. Another 2-star read that I had was From Fake Dates to Forever Goals. This one was a soccer romance novella, and I did not care for it. The biggest thing that I liked about this one is that the female main character has a job that is an environmentalist of some capacity, and I don't read a lot of romances where that is one of the main character's jobs, so I like that that was very unique in terms of character development and personality, but otherwise didn't love the plot, did not love the characters. Their chemistry was very bland, and yeah, did not love this one as much as some of the other ones. I also read Mr. Heartbreaker by Piper Rain, and I gave this one 3 stars. This is a hockey romance. Again, so much hockey this month. And this is another one where we end up getting more spice than a plot. I thought the characters were so great. I just wanted more of that connection outside of just the physical element that was throughout this entire book. The trope of this one, the main trope, is friends with benefits or like acquaintances to benefits, but there's so much potential for more once they both realized that they actually had feelings for each other and wanted something real, but they both kept pushing it off just for the sake of that physicalness or not wanting to be the first one to make the move. That there could have been so many wonderful moments between the two of them that were not there because there was just spice instead. I liked this one. I don't know if I'll read more by the author, but I have heard wonderful things. I would love to check out something else in the future. I just don't think I'll be doing anything else for a while. Also, as a part of the Zodiac Academy read-along that Vanessa from Read with Dr.B is hosting, I read Ruthless Fae. I gave this one 3.5 stars. We are getting to the point in this series where the books are getting longer and longer, which I love because for the most part, my attention is very much being held, but there are moments where I'm just like, I don't care. And it's also getting a little bit harder to keep everything and everybody straight. The dramatized audios are so wonderful, and there's a lot that happens in these books in regards to plot, romance, dark themes that happen, foreshadowing into things that are going to happen, and I really enjoyed it overall. I gave it 3.5 stars. I didn't like it as much as the first main book in the series, but I did have a wonderful time, and I am excited to continue reading the series with everybody in that Discord group. Another 2-star read that I had was Pucks and Books by Tony Aleo. This one I read for a sports romance reading vlog for the readathon, and I don't know why I finished it. I did highly consider DNFing it. This one also was more spice than plot. Even the main character in here admits that she is in an insta-lust relationship, and I just don't like that trope at all. I think our first spicy scene is by page 25. So if that tells you anything how the rest of the book goes, yeah, that's how the rest of the book goes pretty much. They do end up having a little bit more of a connection emotionally once we get to the 50% mark, but it was just way too much for me. There was also some very triggering content in regards to abuse and cult things that our female main character grew up being in and escaped, but I just did did not like this one, unfortunately. Another arc that I had from Hambright PR was Worst Nanny Ever by Angela Casella. I read the sweet version, which means that the spice was fade to black, so there was all the tension but none of the open door scenes, which I've kind of been gravitating toward recently. I've discovered after reading some of these, I think I might be starting to prefer that more, and I really appreciate that the author writes two versions of her books, one sweet version and one spicy version, for you to be able to kind of pick and choose what you might want to pick up at the time. This one is also a nanny single dad romance. He is a drummer for a band that is slowly getting more popular, and a couple months before the book starts, he, on his front step, finds that his son, who I don't think he knew existed, is dropped off there. His ex-girlfriend, who is the mother of the boy, decides to leave and leaves the child with our main male character, and he has to figure out how to be both a dad but also a friend and also a drummer, and how to navigate all of those things. This one was so sweet. I loved how our female main character fell in love with the son right away. I thought that they were so cute, and I loved that they created their own found family with our main male character, our female main character, and the little boy in the story. I wish I remembered their names, but I don't, and I need to write them down again. But anyway, this one is very cute. I laughed, I giggled, I just felt very happy that they all found themselves and their little family together, and I cannot wait to read more by this author because of that. I actually met her a year ago at a book event in Knoxville, and I'll be meeting her again next year, and my hope is to read a couple books by her and annotate them before meeting her so she can kind of like flip through them and sign those books. So it'll be fun, but I really enjoyed this one and would highly recommend checking it out. My second 2025 favorite for September was Rookie Season by Katie Bailey and Leah Brenner. This one is another hockey romance, of course, about our main female character Allegra, who goes by Allie, and she moves into this apartment with an old friend from college, and one of her roommates, they do not really get along right off the bat. And even though he is very grumpy and she is very sunshine, they end up kind of getting feelings for each other and exploring those feelings while also being roommates and also becoming friends together and friends with the other roommates in this apartment. This book was so much fun. We have some very hard conversations. Allie went through something very traumatic before she left school to move to this new city, and we get to talk about that and learn more about that. But we also get some very fun and funny dialogue and moments between our two main characters, but also their roommates. They are such a fun friend group and so supportive of each other, and I loved everything about this one. I tabbed it, I wrote in it, I annotated it, and I also appreciated that this one was fade to black. There was so much tension, but none of the spicy scenes, and I want to dive into more from both of these authors because this book was just so fun. It had everything in it that I want in a romance, and I absolutely loved it. These next two books also go together, the first being Heart of Gold and the second being Borrow My Heart, both by Kirsty Good. In our first book in this series, Heart of Gold, we are following our two main characters, Quinn and Gavin. They have a one-night stand on a cruise without knowing who the other is and find out that they go to the same university. I read this one for the sports romance reading vlog as well, which I'll have tagged above, of course. I gave this first one 3 stars. One of my biggest problems with it is that the ex, Quinn's ex, is a major character in the entire book and continually disrupts the relationship. I don't think that Quinn is still in love with her ex, but I just don't love the love triangle trope when the problematic ex is just in it constantly because he takes away from the main romance, and I wanted to see more of the main romance between Quinn and Gavin, but I feel like that was kind of disrupted with the entrance of the ex all the time. But I did like it. And then I also read a novella that goes with the same universe that follows 2 other characters from the first book, and this one I unfortunately gave 2 stars. The writing was just not great. It felt very repetitive of the first book as we tried to catch up to this plot that takes place a little bit during and kind of after, I think, this main book, and I just was not a huge fan. Again, the writing was not great, and I felt like a lot of what happened in it I already knew from book 1. So 2 stars to this one. We are down to the last 6 books, y'all. We are getting through it. Next up is the last novella that I read called It's a Setup. This one is by Steph C.R. I also gave this one 3 stars. It was a volleyball romance, which I really liked. I liked that this month kind of exposed me to different sports romances. I've read hockey and I've read football, but I also got to read volleyball and tennis this month, which is kind of fun, so I will take it. And I also got to read some soccer too, which we love to see. Lots of variety. But this one is about our volleyball main character who plays on the first professional team in this city, and they have to share a rink with the hockey team, and she and the hockey captain do not get along, but they end up having this PR relationship that ends up turning into something real. This one was fine, nothing super memorable, but I did have a good time with it, and yeah, 3 stars. The last sports romance that I read was A Groom of One's Own by Emma St. Clair. This book, y'all, was so cute. In this one, we are in a small town setting with a minor league hockey team, and one of our players is Canadian and is about to be deported back to Canada if he cannot get married. That's pretty much the only solution in this short amount of time. And so he ends up doing this fake marriage of convenience with the girl who volunteers at the animal shelter that they both go to, and she's very quiet and very shy, and they bring out the best in each other. I gave this one 4 stars. It was so much fun. I have read a book in this series in the past, and it was fun to revisit those characters. I do want to read more by Emma St. Clair in the future. I read her other book, Just Don't Fall, last fall, and I liked it, but I did not love it. This one, though, was so cute, and I definitely want to check out more. I also got to read a fall book in September, which is great, amidst all the sports romances and everything, and that one was Fall I Want by Lyra Parrish. This book has been all the rage, and I think people would be sad or surprised to know that I actually did not love it. I gave this one 3 stars. It was just fine to me. It was a very choppy plotline, I felt, where our characters went from dislike to friends to lovers in like very choppy amounts of time without any shift in the development of that relationship. It was cute. We love a good small town setting, billionaire romance. There were some very sweet moments in the book, and the fall vibes were immaculate. This one was just not a favorite romance for me by any means, and I don't think I'll remember it in the future. I actually had a copy of the book that I ended up selling to another reader who I hope will enjoy it more than I did. Another one that was a pleasant surprise was First Time Caller by B.K. Morrison. I read this one for a 24-hour reading challenge, which I don't think has come out yet when y'all are seeing this, but it should be out in the next week and a half or so. This one was very cute. In this one, we follow our main characters, Aiden and Lucy. Aiden is the host of a love talk radio show where he gives people advice on relationships and love. Lucy is a single mom who is a mechanic, and this is their love story. She ends up having the opportunity to go on the show with him and help host it, while also trying to find her own love, to find a date to go on, and in the process they end up falling in love. This one has some great found family moments, some wonderful humor. I think this one is inspired by Sleepless in Seattle, which I have not ever seen, but this one was very fun. I love the setting, love the characters, and the plot was great. I don't know why romances need to be over 400 pages, and my copy was, and I feel like I was a little bit bored at times because of how long it was, but overall it was very cute, and I gave it 3.5 stars. I also passed this one along to somebody else already, but I did have a fun time with it. A huge thank you to Kensington Books for sending me a copy of The Wrong Daughter by Danny Smith. I also binged this one during my 24-hour vlog, and I gave it 3 stars. In this one, we are following our main character, Kate, and her sister went missing when she was a child, and she still remembers the night that her sister went missing, the night that she was taken, and 16 years later, her sister is back, and Kate, or Caitlin, does not believe that her sister is really who she says she is. Something is not quite right, and a lot of truths are unraveled in the midst of this story. This one I liked for the most part. The ending was very far-fetched for me though. It felt a little bit out there, and that kind of ruined my expectations for it because I don't feel like it really fit the book, and I did not love it personally. I had heard that this was a very quick and fast-paced story, and I don't really agree with that, but once I got into it, I was into it, and it was quick once I reached like the 50% mark, and I was actually hooked on the plot and the characters, and the intensity and tension were building up. So 3 stars for this one. I wish I got more by the author in the future, but I think I'll probably end up passing this one along to somebody else. And finally, in the month of September, I read Leave Before I Love You by by Max Monroe. This was a NetGalley arc that I had and I gave it 4 stars. This is the second book in a series that I started earlier this year, I think actually just in August. But we are following 2 of our characters who are mentioned in that first book, Avery and Henry, and they get stuck on an island. They are stranded somehow. I'll let you all figure that out for yourselves if you end up picking this book up. But this is their love story, their time being stranded and alone, and how they get closer to each other, and how we get to see the depth to both of their characters. Avery really frustrated me in the first book in this series, but very much redeemed herself in her story. I really grew to appreciate her and love her, and really enjoyed watching her and Henry grow closer, even once they were rescued and brought back to the mainland. I will say though that this book has the cheating trope in it technically, so if that's a big turnoff for you, this might not be for you. I did just want to mention it because it is in there. But 4 stars to this one. A great way to end September. I had a really fun time with it. We have officially reached the end of the 29 books that I read in the month of September. I tried to talk so quickly about these, but the raw footage is still over 40 minutes, so I'll be whittling that down a little bit before I upload it for y'all to see. But this month was full of some great reads, so many romances, a ton of romances, but I found some new favorites and had some really great reads. Overall, some very cozy end of summer books that I'm very happy that I was able to pick up. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite read of September was, or if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were on them. But that is all that I have for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.